This year I was super excited to start all my flowers and vegetables from seed. I went a little bit crazy and I bought a lot of seeds, but it was a long winter and I couldn't wait to get started. I tried two different methods. I did the indoor seed starting. So for Christmas, I got myself a 1,000-watt grow light and I put it on a little shelf in my bathroom. So that's where I started all my first seeds. I did end up buying a second one because I liked it so much. So then I had two to work with, but that's still not very much space. So I also did the winter sowing method. I was very excited to find this. And it's basically where you sow all your seeds in the winter in milk jugs or any kind of juice jug that you have lying around. And basically when the weather warms up enough for them to germinate, they do it all on their own. You don't have to water them. You don't have to do anything to them. It sounded very easy, so I was excited to give it a try. I'm going to share a little bit with you about what I did to prepare my winter sowing jugs. And if you want to try it yourself, I am a beginner. This is my first year winter sowing. I will put a link in the description to the YouTube videos I watched to learn how to winter sow. Let me show you what I did and then I'll tell you my thoughts on how it all worked out. These are the steps I used to make my winter sowing jugs. First, I took an X-Acto knife and I cut the milk jug in half. Be sure not to cut the handle off. Next, you want to take your soil and add some water. Make sure it's evenly moist. Next, you want to poke some drainage holes in the bottom. I used an X-Acto knife and some scissors to make the holes bigger. Some people use a drill. Add your soil. I'm going to add parsley seeds to this. I put 6 parsley seeds on one side, added some vermiculite, then I added 6 more seeds on the other side. I'm going to see if the side with vermiculite germinates better than the one without. Then you want to make sure you label the inside. Spray your jug with water, close it up, and duct tape all around. Then make sure you label the outside as well, and you're done. We're opening up the first jugs today. We got lupins planted back in January. Already took the tape off of those. Looking pretty good. Some more lupins. These are the hybrids. And this one, not sure if it's ready, but it looks kind of ready. Storage onions. Okay, that's it. So my overall thoughts on the winter sowing process are positive. It saved me a ton of space. There's a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to start simply because there was not enough room inside. So I did have some success and some failures. I know I've seen videos where people pop open their jugs and they're chock-a-block full of seedlings that are like this high. Mine were not exactly like that. But I did have quite a bit of luck with the cool weather vegetables and flowers. So I wrote a list of the things that worked for me. There were a few that did not germinate at all, which is always a little bit disappointing. I'm not sure. It could have been because we had a much cooler spring than normal. Or it could just be because it's not warm enough here for those types of plants. Did not germinate at all. Dwarf zinnias, sweet peas, pumpkins, this one, the red salvia, oh so sad, I was excited about that. And rosemary, I got nothing, no germination at all. There were a couple that worked okay, but not great. The broccoli was one. You can see it here. This is what the broccoli looks like right now. It's mid-May, so this is very, very tiny. By the time this is big enough to produce broccoli, it'll be midsummer and probably too hot for broccoli. So I think I would do the regular broccoli inside only next time. The purple peacock broccoli, however, worked awesome in the jug. I can show you a little bit here about the plants. I would say my winter sown purple peacock broccoli has surpassed the one that I started inside. It's already got like little florets started. It's a very pretty plant, and I'm excited to see how that one goes. The things that worked well for me. So these are things I would definitely winter sow every single year. The spinach was ready super early. I planted it in my salad planter, and then I actually would do even more of it next year so that you have a continual supply of salad greens basically until summer starts. So the spinach, the lettuce, the kale, the purple peacock broccoli worked really great. For flowers, I had a lot of success with the lupins. They were pretty tall when I opened them, and the cornflowers were great. So I've never grown cornflowers before. They look really pretty on the website. I will see how those go, and they're in the garden. They're the tallest thing I have in my garden right now because they were ready so early. Tomatoes were so-so. I would say they're still a decent size. Like I'm happy with how they are, but my inside grown tomatoes are just way, way, way bigger. They're both healthy, so it depends on when you want your plants to be ready. Growing the things that are cool weather, like the salad greens, I would definitely do those outside again. It was worth it. And it was so easy. You don't have to harden them off. You don't have to water them. It's great. If you're interested in trying winter sowing, I am a beginner, so I will post a link to the YouTube videos I watched to learn how to winter sow. They're by Cheryl Mann, and she has a whole selection of videos on everything you could want to know about winter sowing. They're very, very helpful, and I recommend watching those. Okay, for the indoor seed starting, as I mentioned, I have a 1,000-watt grow light in my bathroom. The reason I chose my bathroom is because it's got a heat vent in there and it stays very, very warm. So the new seedlings were really happy in there. And then I have a second light that I bought early this spring, and that one is in my bedroom. So I had seedlings everywhere. This is how I planted them. I basically found any leftover plastic that I had. So this one's from the recycling. You just drill holes in the bottom. And I started a bunch of seeds in here. Most of them I did in different kinds of cell trays. So these are plastic cell trays. And then I would place the cell trays in, again, a piece of recycling and water from the bottom. So basically you fill the bottom here of the plastic with water, and the roots grow down towards the water. That worked really, really well for me and produced some really healthy seedlings. I also have a fan in there, so they're getting lots of air circulating, makes them really strong. I would recommend both those things. Bottom watering and the fan worked really well. The other thing I used were these peat pot type of things from the dollar store. You can see I can't even pick it up because it's so soggy and it's going to fall apart. These ones, you can grow seedlings in them, and I did manage to grow stuff, but it was more time consuming. They took some effort. It's really hard to keep them just the right amount of water. They're either too soaking wet or they're super dry. So I have managed to grow a bunch of things in them, but it did take some effort. I cut the bottoms completely off of mine. I found that worked the best because they just, I don't know, it's like the holes closed up when they got full of water. So I cut the bottoms completely off of mine, and I only leave the seedlings in here as short a time as possible. When they got too big, then I would transplant them into a bigger pot. And because I started things so early, I did this for just about everything. These are my marigolds that I transplanted into a much bigger pot. And these are ready to go out in the garden now. So I'm excited to see all the things that I sowed finally out there growing in the garden. It's exciting. The veggies that I mentioned, I had a lot of success with. The pumpkins are ginormous now. The corn is ginormous. I did want to mention I did something special for the corn and the sunflowers because I knew that they didn't like their roots being disturbed. So you can see here I have these little toilet paper rolls and they have little corn seedlings in them. This is how I did all the sunflowers. I sewed them in toilet paper tubes. The bottoms are completely open. When you first put the soil in, you pack it really tight down along the bottom, and then you can fill the rest up just regular with loose potting soil. I pre-moistened all the soil before I put it in, and I had a really great germination rate. And it's really easy when you go to plant these. You basically just sit it on top of the hole and press down lightly with your finger and they pop right out the bottom. So that's how I did all the sunflowers. I planted them out in the garden when they were about 2 inches high, and they're doing really well now, so we'll see how it goes. We're planning on building kind of like a sunflower tower around them. The original corn that I did, I planted in the high quality peat pots from the garden center, and those were really nice as well. Much different than the ones from the dollar store. So the peat pots from the garden center worked great. I ended up planting those directly into paper pots. I was trying really hard not to disturb the roots, and I saw this video on making paper pots from a YouTuber called You Can't Eat the Grass. I'll post a link in the description to that paper pot making video, but basically I took the peat pots, filled the paper pots with soil, put the peat pots directly in, and then transplanted that whole thing into the garden when it was ready. Because I started the seeds way too early, we ended up having to build a greenhouse out on our front lawn to house the cucumbers and the tomatoes and the corn that I had started way too early. So yeah, I'll give you a little tour of that. Forgot to mention the flowers that I started. I started a whole bunch of flowers as well. I did marigolds and zinnias, as well as the sunflowers, and I accidentally killed all my zinnias last week. I planted them out. They were still fairly tiny. They had 2 sets of true leaves. Planted them out in the garden, and we got this really, really hot weather out of nowhere, and they all died. So I'm very sad about that. I've still got hope for my snapdragons and my marigolds. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they will be okay. I will be doing it all again next year and taking the mistakes that I've made. I've already wrote myself out a schedule of when I'm going to start them next year so I don't keep starting things too early. So hopefully I actually listen to that next year. We'll see. So here's a tour of the little greenhouse. Here I am at the greenhouse we built because I started corn too early inside, and we needed a way to protect the corn until it was warm enough outside for them. So you can see they're looking really healthy in here. This is a cherry tomato plant that I started inside, and this is the one that I winter sowed in the jugs. So you can see there's a big difference there, although they're both very healthy, is the difference between the cucumbers that I started inside and the ones that I winter sowed. You can see there's a big difference in size there, but they're all very, very happy. So we're planning on taking this greenhouse off, the top lifts off, and we will remove it, and then around the end of May they'll be on their own. Hopefully they'll do okay. So next year I will be doing a bit of both winter sowing and indoor sowing. I've got a list here of which ones I have decided to do inside and which ones I've decided to do outside. If you have any suggestions for things that have worked really well for winter sowing or indoor seed starting, I'd love to hear them. And happy gardening!